Good morning everyone. My name is Sarah Doherty and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Hornbill. I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar where we'll be having a presentation on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM with Hornbill Service Manager, with Abdi Hamisi, Sales Manager, and Manish Dave, Relationship Manager here at Hornbill. Just to inform you, Delegate Auto will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We will collate questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you for taking the time to attend. I will now pass you over to Abdi and Manish.
Hi there everyone, this is Manish speaking. Thanks for joining our webinar today. Today myself and Abdi will be taking you through an overview of Hornbill Service Manager and how we've helped simplify the challenges of modern service management. I will begin by looking at some of the key challenges that we've identified and addressed in our new solution. Abdi will then take you through Service Manager in action through a demo, and then we'll close by looking at our commercial offering, some of Hornbill's key differentiators, and our Supportworks to Service Manager migration package. So to begin with, Hornbill have been in the ITSM industry now for over 20 years. We've looked at our experience in supplying Supportworks, the system that all of our attendees are using today, and our experience in the industry to identify a number of key challenges, not just with Supportworks, but with other modern ITSM on-premise traditional software that's out there. The number one challenge that we hear about all the time is upgrades. They're an expensive, time-consuming process that can be quite painful. We always hear from Supportworks customers who plan on upgrading, but for one reason or the other, the project gets delayed, and before you know it, there's a big gap between the version you're on to the latest version, causing a more costly, complex project. Supportworks is a traditional piece of on-premise software, so Hornbill will release a new version, you download it, you test it, then you deploy it to a live environment. But the point being, you have to stop what you're doing in order to upgrade. So we'll show you how we've made life a lot easier in Hornbill Service Manager. Customization. A lot of our customers bought Supportworks in the first place because it's so customizable. But the disadvantage of being so customizable is that the more you customize a solution, the more difficult it becomes to support. And going back to my first point, upgrade, because those customizations often need to be re-implemented or reapplied at the point of an application upgrade. Complexity. Supportworks is a very feature-rich, powerful tool, but it is complicated and requires a high degree of knowledge and expertise. This leads on to training, which can be time-consuming and costly. A situation we often hear about is where a Supportworks administrator or solution champion leaves an organization and they take the knowledge of Supportworks with them. And before you know it, there's a gap in knowledge on the service desk. So again, we'll show you how we've addressed that and made life easier in Service Manager. Usability. So Supportworks again is very powerful, very feature-rich, but I'm sure you'd agree if you compare it to the type of apps we use outside of the office, it's not particularly intuitive. For the most part, communication actually happens outside of Supportworks. So we'll be logging tickets in Supportworks, but we'll be asking questions of colleagues, whether it's emails or through a conversation by the water cooler. And that communication is not stored within Supportworks. This is what we refer to as tacit knowledge, and we'll come on to that shortly. And reporting is also an area that can be challenging in your current system. So all of what I've mentioned leads to a high total cost of ownership, with upgrades, with consultancy, with training, with hidden costs you might not think about, such as the cost to host a server, the infrastructure cost, the electricity cost, the cooling costs. And we're all looking at ways to make our spending more efficient. So Hornbill had a light bulb moment where we looked at those challenges that we'd identified, and we looked at how the world had changed with the mobile and cloud revolutions. And we used that to create a collaboration platform that allows your teams and your colleagues to collaborate and interact in a much more modern, intuitive way, where information that matters to you comes to you. On our collaboration platform, various applications are available. Today we'll be focusing on Hornbill Service Manager, but various other line of business apps are available, including Configuration Manager, Customer Manager, and Document Manager. These applications can work standalone or side by side to leverage each other. We've really innovated by marrying Best practice service management with familiar social and consumer mobile concepts to create a system that allows you to share knowledge and ideas, collaborate no matter where you are, allowing you to get more done in less time and from anywhere. You can work across any device, be it a laptop, a mobile, a tablet or a PC. This is all browser based. We also have native iOS and Android applications. You can work from anywhere with language no longer a barrier. I mentioned earlier, for the most part in Supportworks, communication actually happens outside of the tool. So you will log a ticket in Supportworks, but you'll be asking questions of your colleagues, whether it's via an email, whether it's an instant message or a conversation by the coffee machine. And that communication is effectively lost. It's not stored within Supportworks. And it's that type of conversational knowledge that we're really trying to tap into in service management, and we refer to that as tacit knowledge. And Abdi will show you how powerful that can be shortly. Tacit knowledge is in contrast to explicit knowledge, which would be documents such as FAQs, procedures, policies, the type of documents you'd store in a knowledge base. And we'll also show you how we've addressed that area in Service Manager and again made life easier for you. So I mentioned earlier, Supportworks is a traditional piece of on-premise software whereby Hornbill will release a new version, you download it, you test it, you deploy it to your live environment. But the point being, you have to stop what you're doing in order to upgrade. Hornbill Service Manager is a true native cloud application. It's delivered as a service. We use continuous deployment, which means you're always up to date with the latest features. Think of Facebook or Google. You don't stop what you're doing in order to get these new features. You're just always up to date automatically. What that means is there are no more complex and costly upgrades. All of your updates are automatic, keeping you up to date with the latest features without any service disruption and customizations that keep on working guaranteed. So on that note, I will pass over to Abdi now to take you through Service Manager in action.
Thanks, Manish. As Manish said, we're going to take you through a quick presentation here of Hornbill Service Manager, and we thought we'd start by looking at this from the perspective of an end user through the Self-Service Portal. So I'm sure many of you have got a Self-Service Portal, and this is our new take on that. So what we're looking at here is the world according to Steve. So I'm logged in as a user here called Steve, and what we see here is Steve's view of the world, and this is entitlement based. So everything he sees here is based on subscription to services, either as an individual, as part of a team, as part of a site, as part of the whole company. So the services he's presented with here are based on subscription. So he'll only ever see the services he's entitled to, and from that view he can then see all of the stuff that's relevant to him, and whether that's all from IT or whether it's coming from facilities or HR. The concept of enterprise service management exists within the Hornbill platform, which allows you effectively to have multiple service providers all servicing the same customer base, if you like, but providing the customers with different experiences in terms of the services they provide. So again, as a user, I can come in and sort my view down based on the different providers that potentially I can interact with. So again, the portal is very graphical. It's delivered in any language and can be customized and branded to suit your own purposes, and all of that is done in a codeless fashion through the admin UI. So let's take you through a couple of scenarios here. Obviously, Steve, in the context of using the portal, has the ability to favoritize the apps that or the services rather, that he uses more regularly. He can come in and have a look at the services where there are active requests. He can also obviously come in and have a look at services where the service itself has been impacted or flagged as impacted in some way, and some kind of message is being pushed out to let him know as a user of that service that there's a potential issue. So let's assume at this particular point that Steve was working from home today and was having trouble connecting to the VPN, so he's going to come back to the home working service and see if he can identify what the issue is, or indeed raise a new request. So coming in here, the first thing he might look for is there any known issues based on the fact that the IT team are flagging this as an impacted service. So we can see that actually there is an issue with the VPN, and we can see that in two places. One, that we've got a known issue flagged, but also that the team have pushed out a banner or a bulletin, if you like, in this case, notifying him that there's a potential issue. So very visual, very easy for the customer to spot that there's a problem. In this particular example, we can see that there's a published workaround which may indeed help to get Steve back online. But if that wasn't the case, or it was the case that he was affected by this issue, he could flag that by hitting the Me Too option, and what that does is adds him as an impacted customer to that particular problem or known error that's being investigated. And from this point on, any communication that goes out in relation to that known issue would also include Steve in this instance, so he'd be kept abreast of what was going on. So that's quite a nice, quick, easy way of diverting any additional incidents being raised with basically associated this user to an existing known error without having to log a new incident and find it, track it, link it. It's just a quick Me Too option, very quick and very easy. Now, assuming that wasn't going to solve Steve's issue, let's flip forward to another option here which allows the service provider, in this case IT or HR or finance or facilities, whoever it may be, to publish a set of frequently asked questions or knowledge. So in this particular instance, a very simple text-based piece of knowledge, or it could be that you're presenting knowledge in the form of videos or documents. All of those formats are available, if you like, to be pushed out here. And what this allows the user to do is to allow to leave feedback on whether that was helpful and to see how often that's been utilized. But either way, it's clear, concise knowledge relating specifically to the service that they may be looking at. From here, the user can also come in and have a look at any existing requests that are going on. And we can see here there's 3 different statuses, ones that are active, ones that are closed, and again ones that are awaiting feedback. So if I click through to this one, what we're looking at here is the ability for the service provider, in this case IT, to solicit feedback, if you like, or survey the customer at the end of a request cycle, if you like. So in this case, Steve could leave feedback on how he felt this ticket was handled and essentially provide that information back to the IT team. Okay. Now, in terms of going back to the service, let's assume that Steve, in this particular instance, wanted to log a new request. So what we see here under the Make a Request tab is an actual request catalog. So for this service, or any service that you publish, one has the ability to publish a request catalog, which enables you to define all of the different things that the user or the customer can either raise a ticket against or raise a request for. Okay. So in this particular instance, we're going to track through and press the VPN access one, which in this case will actually raise an incident. But there's no terminology on here. It's very simple, very clear for the user to understand what's going on with the actual portal and raise their issue, if you like. So let's just pop that in there, issue with VPN, next. And then the next thing I need to know is what device are you trying to connect from, potentially. So I'm going to present a list of Steve's assets that he has access to, or I can give him the option to go off and search for any other assets that he might be using. But let's assume he's connecting from here. Now, the nice thing about this way of capturing information, which we call progressive capture, is it's very simple, very concise. You only ask the questions that are relevant. I don't need to ask him what service it is because we already know that. I know that he's trying to log an issue with VPN, so all I need to know is, is there an error code and what device are you trying to connect from potentially. You can extend those questions out very easily and codelessly as well. So let's go ahead and raise that request. So having clicked finish, that's going to go off and raise that request, and the business process that underpins that service will then invoke whatever process is required underneath in order to fulfill this request. So in this particular case, you can see at the top here, I've got the core reference number, I've got a heads-up display, and this is all about simplifying the experience for both the analyst and the user to let them know exactly where that ticket sits in its life cycle in respect to the business process that's been kicked off for fulfilling this particular type of issue. So much like when we interact with something like Amazon online, you want to know where that thing you've purchased is in terms of getting to you. You can go back in there and you can see that it's been dispatched, or it's currently at the depot, or whatever it might be. In the same context here, as a user, I can see where IT are in respect to resolving this issue for me. I can see the details of the request, any other questions, the assets, and most importantly, I've got a timeline here which allows me as an end user, in this case Steve, to interact with IT and to provide updates, to seek up more information, provide more information back in the context of this particular request. Okay, so you've got that real live sort of collaboration between the user and IT going on here. So that's a very quick look at a particular request. Now, assuming we were approaching this slightly differently, one of the features we built in here is a global federated search on the portal, and this allows Steve in this instance to search for anything that relates to him, if you like, and the services that he has available to him. So if I was to go in here and search for mobile, assuming that Steve perhaps had lost his mobile or was looking for some information in relation to his mobile, you can see there's various bits of information that are being returned. There's a frequently asked question or a piece of knowledge here about the policy for replacing mobile phones. You can see there's a couple of catalog items, one which allows you to request a new mobile phone or get help with your existing phone. You can see that Steve has a current request open right now, and he's subscribed to a service that relates to mobiles as well here. But let's assume that in this case Steve wanted to raise a request for a new mobile. Again, the catalog item takes him through and allows him to interact very quickly and easily with the system to raise that request and push that through into the system. Again, the routing, all the logic behind that is automated, and all the user has to do here is basically provide the relevant information and then can track where that request is in this life cycle going forwards. Okay, so that's the self-service experience. Let's step back in and have a look at the world according to one of the analysts, if you like. So I've just changed context, and now I'm logged in here in the context of Graham, who in this particular context is an analyst who perhaps has a few more rights than most. He can see and do everything, but for today's demo he's going to be able to see and interact with all the different functionality that we have available, and I'm going to drop into some admin stuff as well. But just key to note that everything within this platform is roles and rights driven, so you can lock down at a very granular level what people can see or do, and that's a key aspect of the system. Obviously security is fundamental when you're looking at a cloud service such as Hornbill. Okay, so the first thing, just to orientate you on the screen here, is the notifications banner up here. So what this allows you to see in real time, as you'd expect from any native mobile app that you use today, is what's going on and what do I need to know about. So these notifications are available both here in the web client, or available on your mobile phone through our native Android or iOS apps. So you can see here that in real time Graham has been notified about those couple of requests that we logged through the portal at the moment. So first and foremost, there's an incident there that we raised by Steve in relation to the VPN working from home issue, and also a service request that we raised here by Steve again in relation to that new mobile phone. And in the context of that last request, you can see that actually Graham is an authorizer. He's been asked to authorize something in respect to this. So regardless of where you are, you're always going to be up to date with the stuff that needs your attention, and only the stuff that needs your attention based on your role. The second icon up in the top right here is Harry Hornbill. So Harry's function is to notify and to train effectively. So as Manish mentioned, the Hornbill service is delivered as a service, and what that basically means is as new features are released, you get them straight away. You don't have to stop to plan and do upgrades. And that's not unique just to on-premise software. A lot of cloud solutions, first generation cloud solutions, and indeed most of the cloud solutions in our space of service management still operate on the basis of annual releases of software, whereas Hornbill's release is on an automated basis. Continuously new features and functionality appear, and so Harry's role really is to notify you that a new piece of functionality is there, to provide you video training or links to knowledge or wiki articles that allow you to understand and comprehend what needs to be done. And as soon as you're happy, you understand what to do with that piece of functionality, you hit gotcha, and he'll disappear away until the next new thing comes along and needs your attention. There's a global search at the top that allows you to search across the whole system, and then down the left-hand side are the various applications that you have installed. So in the context of today's presentation, we're going to look at Service Manager. We'll perhaps touch on Configuration Manager, and we'll definitely have a quick look at Document Manager. So there's a number of different apps, your mailbox, and a couple of other components that we have installed here on this particular system. But for today's purposes, we'll probably focus mostly on Service Manager. The central section here is your newsfeed, and I probably don't need to tell anyone how newsfeed works, but just to put it in the context of Hornbill and service management, what the newsfeed does is it brings to the fore all the information that's pertinent to you in your role based on the things that you have an interest in or are following. And so in the context of the Hornbill platform, a ticket can be a social object, a document can be a social object, a asset can be a social object, which means that you can follow them. If they're important, you can follow them, and as such, anything that happens with those get published into your newsfeed. You've also got the context of workspaces, which we'll come back and look at, but a workspace essentially is like a group on Facebook. It's somewhere where people with a common interest, goal, objective, project can come together and discuss what's going on, and obviously anything gets updated in one of these workspaces gets pushed into your newsfeed if you're a member of said workspace. Okay, so let's step into the world of service management very quickly, and I guess a good place to start is the request list, just to bring us all back to some more familiar ground, if you like. But what you're looking at here is the Service Manager request list page, and what you can see is Graham's view on the world in respect to the types of requests and the teams that he has membership of. So I can see that Graham has access to various different types of requests. And again, if Graham didn't have visibility of changes, they just wouldn't appear. There would be no concept of it being grayed out. It just wouldn't be visible. I can see that Graham exists in a number of different teams. So he's a member of First, Second, Change, Problem, Professional Services. So he's a member of various teams. And in the context of this, I can sort my list based on those teams. I can sort the list based on the services that Graham supports. I can sort my teams based on particular types of tickets. And I can then go further and filter this down just to say I'm looking for issues relating to VPN, for example. So this quick filter up here is multi-purpose, can be used for all sorts of stuff. So again, maybe I'm looking at talking to Anna on the phone and I want to see what tickets Anna currently has open that I have visibility of. So really quick and easy to filter and get this list into sort of shape and be able to see what you need to see. In addition to those standard views, we have the concept of custom views. And again, unlike Supportworks, where one would need to go back to perhaps the administrator and say, I need a new view built, and somebody would then have to go into the data dictionary and understand the columns and the fields in the database. This is designed to put that power back in the hands of individual analysts. So as an analyst, I can come in and decide that I need a new view, and I can define my own views very quickly and easily without having any prior knowledge of the database or anything like that. So I can come through here and I can define the name of my view. I can start to add conditions in and start to build up to say that actually in this particular interest, I'm only interested in service is I don't know, desktop support, for example, and I can add that condition in. So now I'm only looking at high priority open instance for the desktop support service, for example. So really quick and easy to extend or build new filters. And once you've got one of these filters or views built, I have the ability then to extend that visually. So in addition to saying I'm looking at high priority open incidents, I might want to filter that by team or by owner or indeed by site, or extend that out to include customer, for example. So if I come in here and just say customer, and we select a donut chart and put the condition of customer in there, we can then preview that, and we can see that that's what the chart looks like in the context of customers with open high priority incidents. Now if I save that, what also this allows me to do then is to either share that with my colleagues or indeed toggle between my request list view here and my dashboard. And in doing that, you can now see that new chart that I created here front and center, and obviously I have the ability then to decide if I want to make that bigger or where I want to place that on my dashboard. So in essence, this is my personal dashboard as an analyst, which allows me to decide what I want to see visually. And the nice thing about this is it has drill down built in, so I can start to drill down into these charts and bring into view those requests that are important to me. Now, obviously, for some people, the preference is to work with the list. For others, it's more of a visual thing. But the nice idea we have here is that you can flick between the two and create your own dashboard. So that's the Service Manager request list view. Before we go ahead and raise any tickets, what I wanted to do was just take you into a couple of parts in terms of the admin side of things, and most importantly, the service catalog, because that underpins everything that we do and see, particularly in the portal, from an end user perspective, but it underpins a lot of the logic within this Hornbill Service Manager application. So what we're looking at here is the service catalog, and if I drill down into that particular service, the home working service, the one we looked at a moment ago on the portal in the context of Steve, we can see here a number of things. So this is where I would configure the service in terms of its name, its icon, its visibility. Most importantly, on the right hand side, here's where I would decide who subscribes to this service. So the reason we were able to see this service on the portal for Steve is you can see here that Steve is a subscribed user. He's been subscribed on the basis of being a user, but we could have subscribed the whole of Steve's company, whole of Steve's department, team, or any other logical container to that service, in which case anyone within that grouping would then be able to interact and see that service on the portal, for example. The second area that's important here is the concept of supporting teams. So in this particular service, we can see that first, second, change and problem management teams are all involved in the support of this service. So they're the teams that can see this service, log tickets for this service, and pass tickets across from each other to each other in relation to this service. But if, for argument's sake, this was the HR service, we could just include one team, which would mean that those tickets are constrained just to that one particular team and no one else would have visibility of them. So very quick, very easy way of achieving that enterprise service management capability that is a little bit more tricky to achieve in Supportworks through the use of data dictionaries and filtering. We can see here that there's various configuration options against this service. So the first thing is the ability to decide whether we can log incidents, service requests, problems, known errors, or indeed changes against that particular service. And what we have just very quickly is the ability then to define things like the catalog items that we saw on the portal. So I can see here that VPN access issue that we saw on the portal earlier on is defined here. And what we have in the definition of this is the nice user-friendly name and description, and then into some of the smarter things like being able to define what is the form, what are the questions I'm going to ask when somebody clicks on that button, and more importantly, what is the business process that's going to get invoked in order for us to fulfill on that particular request. So these are two very important concepts within the Hornbill Service Manager app, and it's probably worth just taking a moment to touch on those. So let's touch on progressive capture. So this is a direct replacement for perhaps what you're familiar with in Supportworks in terms of the self-service wizards, but it also doubles up as the form designer and also the, I guess, the category profiles within, the profiles within Supportworks, if you like. So if we jump into progressive capture, I just wanted to take you through and just show you a couple of quick examples. So we had a question earlier on to look for a new mobile, which we saw on the portal. So again, this is where without any code or any necessary programming skills, you can come in and actually define what those questions and how you ask and what you ask of a user, whether they're an end user through the portal or an analyst in the user interface. So in the particular instance where we raised that new mobile request, the first thing we were doing is resolving who's the user, and obviously through the portal we don't need to present that question because we know who they are, they're already logged in. But the second question that we asked, which we did see completed, was can you tell me the answers to various questions, which was which model of phone would you want, how much memory, and various other bits. So again, in terms of defining these, it's very simple. You pop your question in there, you can put a description in there, and then you have your options, and you could easily come in and add in a new option here to say, ABC phone, whatever it might be, and it's as easy as that to change the actual options that are available, if you like. So as far as building these forms is concerned, it's very straightforward. I can change the logic here and add in a new node here that says actually what I'm looking for is a further form, which at this point I'm going to be looking for somebody to add an attachment, which will be perhaps your purchase order, and I'm going to make this mandatory. And so once I join that back onto here, the next time somebody goes in and tries to make a mobile phone request, not only are we going to ask them what type of phone they want, but we're going to ask them to attach a purchase order. So again, really quick, really easy to configure these things. Now, they don't all end up being quite as straightforward as that, because one of the things we've tried to do in the system is to do away with the whole concept of having huge forms, as we tend to see in Supportworks, where, as you all probably be familiar, is there's an incident form may have anywhere from 15 to 50 fields on there that one has to now negotiate and know whether they're relevant or not. So one of the things we've tried to do here is to again steal from the consumer world, where if I go online to try and buy car insurance, for example, I'm going to go to one of these comparison sites, and the first thing I'm not presenting with is 50 questions on one page. I'm presented with a simple question that says, what kind of insurance are you looking for, car or home or life? Car insurance. Second, what kind of car insurance are you looking for? Third party, fully comprehensive. You get the picture, and basically the system steps you through, and based on the answers that you provide, you get branching. So again, this progressive capture can be used in a very similar fashion, in that I can present a question, who are you? And then I can make a decision, is that person internal or external? If they're internal, I'm going to go in and present the services that they have available to them. If they're external, I'm going to confirm which organisation they work from, and so on and so forth. And obviously through this, by picking the desktop support service, the logic's going to flow this way, and I'm going to ask for a summary description. I'm going to ask the analyst then to categorize this call as being an incident, a problem, a change. If they selected incident, then I'm going to ask for categorization, priority, and then to associate an asset. So again, this can be as simple or as complicated as it needs to be in the back end, but from the user's perspective, logging the call, it presents very easily. Now I know this is quite dry, so we'll come back and have a look at that in a second. I'll actually log a request that follows that logic in a moment. But just stepping back, if we come back up to the BPM side of things, what this deals with is what happens once I've logged the request. So as I press that button in the catalog item, say I want a new mobile, I'm going to ask various questions, but once that call's logged, what happens? So in the example of the new mobile, for example, here we can see that there's a potential process that gets followed. There's an authorization and there's a fulfillment process. So in the case of this, it's going to look for various bits of information to be captured and an authorization stage to happen. If it's approved, it's going to go onto a board for fulfillment, and it's going to confirm that, and it's going to move on to the next stage where the fulfillment starts to take place. So very visual, very simple to understand, and more importantly, even somebody non-technical like myself can come in and actually make sense of either what the process is trying to do, but also to extend that process. And I'll just step back and show you perhaps a more convoluted process in terms of perhaps this change one, where in this particular case we've got 4 particular processes: proposal, planning, implement, review. And again, in each of these stages you can see the logic being laid out graphically. And what's nice about this is that even just dragging out from here, I can start to put in new steps. So I might want to put a human task in here, and then it's a case of simply defining who the owner is of that task and who is going to be assigned that task. Is it a role, a user, a group, a variable, i.e. the current owner of the ticket, for example. So again, I'm just going to step through and just put myself in here. I can put in lifespan, so this task is valid for a certain amount of time. I can describe the details of the task, and then I can define my own definable outcomes, which then can branch out into a decision node, which we can then use to drive the logic forward. So again, without schooling you on this, it's a very straightforward drag and drop interface, and much simpler than perhaps what you're accustomed to on Supportworks or similar. Okay, so stepping back into the world of the service, I know I digress a little bit. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense. So when I'm setting up my catalog items, I'm able to define the catalog item, I'm able to define what questions or progressive capture I'm going to ask, and once that catalog item has been raised, what process gets followed to fulfill that. So hopefully you can see that the configuration around the Hornbill Service Manager app is very straightforward, and here's an example of where the feedback is set up. So in this particular service, there's 3 questions that are being asked, and one can define what feedback you want to solicit in respect of the calls for your service. So stepping forwards, we've got various other bits. I can start to associate assets that underpin, or configuration items that underpin this service. So in this case of the home working VPN, I can see there's some VPN software and a gateway. I can define what knowledge or articles I'm publishing. So again, this is a very simple UI that allows me to bring that information in. One really nice feature here is the ability to define different translations. So if I've got populations of users that speak different languages, I can start to use the same piece of knowledge but to actually automatically translate that and make that available now in French as well as English. So next time a French user comes to that portal, they better see that in French. Similarly, I can do the same with the bulletins. So again, creating these bulletins is really simple. Pick a nice eye-catching image, display the text and the links that you want to pop over the top of it, add translations and publish it. So really easy for the service provider in this case to push that information out. The last thing I'm just going to touch on here before I move on is I talked about Configuration Manager app earlier on. So not only does Hornbill have an asset management database, but we have the concept of Configuration Manager, which is an extra layer of configuration management that you can add in. And by installing that application, what you then get is the ability to start to visualize your environment in terms of being able to visualize the relationships, if you like, the interdependencies between different assets and configurations, items and services. So in this particular example, I can see that if I'm starting at the home working service, I can see that's linked to this gateway, which in turn is linked to a number of PCs, and I can start to bring in and hide various other bits of information. So I might want to just see, the requests rather than the assets. So in this context, I can see the requests that are linked to that particular service, and drill out from there if there's any other information to see in relation to that. So that's all part and parcel of what we offer, and obviously for more information we'll be more than happy to provide that through your relationship manager. So let's jump back in and actually raise a request really quickly, because I'm sure you all want to see what it looks like from an analyst perspective. Now, one of the challenges we found with Supportworks, and to be honest, a lot of service desk tools, is that when you answer the phone and you start talking to Manish, for example, to log a request, you don't know at the outset whether it's an incident, a problem, a service request, and what happens is you end up having to click on one of those forms so you can start to gather information and understand a little bit more about the situation. So whilst you can still do that in Service Manager, one of the things we've tried to do is also make that process a little bit simpler. So in this case, Manish or Steve, for arguments, just phoned in. So let's bring up Steve's details. I can see all of the information, including his previous requests, and I can deal with those, but let's assume it's a new request. The next thing I'm presented here with is what services does Steve subscribe. So maybe he has a Mac and he was looking for some help with regards to his Mac, and I can see the different catalog items that we offer in terms of different types of support configurations that we offer around the Mac. Or maybe he was calling about his facilities issue, and again, if I have the visibility of the facility service, I could log that. Or in this case, I'm just going to log a desktop support call against the generic service rather than a specific catalog item. So again, stepping through, I can start to capture issues here. So issue, and let's go just to be really creative. Moving forward, at this point now, I've probably got enough information to decide whether that's an incident or a problem or a change, and this will then branch the questions appropriately. So having said it's an incident, I'm going to be asked to then categorize that, to prioritize that, and ultimately to associate any relevant assets that I might want to link to that particular request. And again, I can go ahead and link as many assets as I need. And at any point, I can step back through the right-hand side here to make sure I've captured the right information. But once I'm satisfied, I can hit finish, and that's going to raise my new incident for me. So I'm sure you'll all agree that looks very straightforward. One of the sort of prerequisites for this was to make sure that anyone, when sat in front of the system, if designed by the administrator of the system properly, should be able to log a ticket, because the system will step you through the relevant questions and bring up the right information for you, so that you don't have to make too many decisions at the point of logging the call. So having raised that request, we can now see that I've got my request. Key thing for those with a keen eye, there's no F reference here. You have the ability to set your own auto values, whether that's IN for incident, PM for problem, or whatever it might be. You can do that. But in this particular instance, you can see again the heads-up display giving me a view of all of the stages in this particular process. I can see that currently this call has been assigned to the first line team, an email has been sent, and again down here in my timeline I can see and view that email if I wanted to. So again, there's the email that's gone out based on the template that we've defined for that particular service. So all of that's written to the timeline, and that it becomes our if you like, our call diary going forwards. But the nice thing here is I can come in at any point and I can comment on any given particular post and add more information in here. And what's really nice here is I can also reference my colleagues to say, you know, can somebody take a look, for example, you know. And what that does is in this particular case, Alan would have received a targeted communication or a mention in his mobile phone notification center or through his notifications here to say I've requested him to come and take a look, and he'll be back straight into his ticket to provide the knowledge or information that he might have. So, you know, really nice and quick and easy way to communicate with your colleagues. Now what we can see here is the system is looking for a call to be allocated in terms of ownership, so it's brought me into the right place in context. And so again, let's just take ownership of that. I can see visibility of who's available, and I can assign that. So let's take that into my own queue. So having completed that, the process moves forward, and you can see here on the right hand side that a task or an activity has been created. Now it's probably worth just spending a second just to kind of bring you up to speed on tasks. The Hornbill platform, it has a full activity engine built in, which you can access from your sidebar here, which allows me to see all the different tasks that I have, whether they're tasks I've created manually, whether they're tasks like this one here that's been assigned to me automatically by the business process in relation to a particular request. And the task could be do something, or it could be an approval, it could be a whole manner of different things that are visible to me. And they're available too on your mobile. So again, in the context of undertaking tasks relating to moving business process forward, whether that's doing a piece of work, deriving an outcome, or whether it's an approval, all of that can be done on the go through your mobile phone as well. The taskbar along the middle here allows us to define what's possible for this service, and again one can turn on and off these different actions very easily as the owner of the service. And so just to flick through some of these, I can come in here and I can type in updates, for example. So I could stick an update in there. It may be that what I want to do is perhaps grab a screenshot or something. So just grabbing a screen grab of the whole screen here, I could paste that in as the error code, for example. So again, everything goes in line, so I don't have to go clicking through to find this stuff. That's in there. I can schedule callbacks, so maybe I'm going to say that I need to call Steve, and I'm going to stick that in for tomorrow at some more reasonable time. So let's just pop that in there and hit update. So you can see there it's created me an activity, which again I could have assigned to a different colleague. I can set reminders, all that kind of good stuff. But that's going to pop up on my phone when it's relevant, and I'll know that I need to call Steve back. So quite a nice feature. I can add attachments simply by dragging and dropping stuff in here. I'll come back to linking in a moment. I can email. So again, I can email directly out of here. We've got the concept of snippets, which are really nice. So, you know, perhaps you've got some pre-populated text that you want to send out in an email. So again, I can do that very quickly from here. I've got the concept of changing a customer, assigning connections, and a whole bunch of other great things here. Now, just to come back to the linking, what this allows me to do is to go off and start to do some more proactive stuff. So, for example, if I want to look for any other requests that relate to VPN, I can do that. But in this case, I've got quite a lot of results. So let's narrow that field down by saying I'm only looking for problems that are currently open that relate to VPN. And you can see it's returned me a problem here. Now, I could go off and investigate that, but let's assume I've done that and I think it's appropriate to link this incident to that problem. I can simply link that, and in doing so, you can see that that's added that in there as a linked request to this particular ticket. But also, more importantly, it's created a new little icon up here, which is telling me that potentially there's a match or a workaround that's published on that problem that I may be able to benefit from as the incident owner here. So here is the workaround that's being published in relation to that problem. And again, I have the ability as the analyst here to accept or reject that as being the solution to the problem or the issue that I'm looking at here. So again, just a very quick touch on problem management. Further still, I can take my incident, and perhaps I determined that we need to actually raise a change in order to resolve this VPN issue. So again, from here I could clone my incident up into a change. I can start from a blank change form and add this in later on, but just for the interest of time, I'm going to go from this perspective of cloning up. And so again, the questions really, you define what goes in here, and you can then articulate what information needs to be captured in order to put this change proposal, if you like, forward. So having captured that information, what we're saying here is somebody has put forward a request for a change, and whatever your business process would be to go through and assess that then kicks into play. So in this case, on my demo system, I can see that I have a process that's going to start with somebody saying, is this a valid change or not? And once we've decided it is valid, then we'll have to take it forward from there. So let's go in here and actually just quickly take ownership of that. So there's somebody in the change team, and having taken ownership in the change team, we can see that a task has been kicked off here that says, can somebody go in and check if this is valid? And we can say yes, it's okay to go ahead. Perhaps we're going to capture time. How long did we take to capture that decision? And more importantly, I can define the outcomes that I want to make available here. And so let's assume that this is valid and hit on the valid button. So what you can see here is that I've actually now completed one task on this particular change. I can see the time that spent has been captured, but in following up on that being a valid change, a new task has been created and assigned to the change management role. And in this case is to do an impact assessment. So again, just stepping through this very quickly, let's just say this is a low impact change. And again, maybe we took a couple of hours to get to that decision. And I've got my defined outcomes here, which is to say that this is a low impact change. So having flagged that as low, we can see then again obviously that has moved forward and we've got that change task completed. But more importantly, this change is now sat in a stage where it's gone to a cab. I've got 3 approvers that have been fired off for requests for authorization in the form of a task, and we're waiting on them to make a decision as to whether this change should go forward. Now, the approval could be unanimous, i.e. all 3 of them have to come together to agree. It could be based on weighting, so one of these users could have 100% weighting, in which case one could take it forward, or indeed you might have a situation where other logic comes into play. So just to kind of give you a slightly different view on the world, what we have in the system is a concept of boards, and this is if anyone's familiar with Agile or Kanban, this is a slightly different take on a view But we find this is very, very handy, particularly for people involved in change or somebody who has a more holistic view of things that are going on. So whilst you can look at your changes in a list view, this offers you a slightly different view, which allows you to see your changes in flight, but in the context of the stage of the process that they're sat in. So in the context of this particular view, I can see my incoming changes, my assessed, my changes that are currently waiting approval at CAB, ones that have been approved, and so on and so forth. So the one that we were looking at a moment ago is this one here, 212, and you can see that's made its own way to this particular point on the board. So as the CAB sit to meet either virtually or in person, they can come through and review these particular changes and make their determinations as to whether they should go forward. So again, just to kind of progress this, if I move this change forward by saying it's okay to proceed and accept it, as one of the approvers, that now moved that forward, and we can see it's moved into a stage where it's looking for some scheduling. Sorry. So if I pop that in there for tomorrow and the day after, a couple of things very quickly. Firstly, obviously that's going to go into my change calendar, so I can see that changes there in the calendar. Secondly, we'll note that that's also moved forward on my change board, and so that's over here in the scheduled in progress stage. You can see it there. And most importantly, of all, the communication that's relevant has gone out. So we can see here that in the news feed, for those people that are interested, in this case Graham, he's been notified that that change has actually been approved. And the reason that's appeared here is, as I mentioned earlier on, is Graham is a member of the change management workspace, so he's a member of this workspace, and anything that gets written into this particular workspace then goes into his newsfeed, whether that's by the business process engine or whether it's an individual saying, you know, can you take a look at ABC, whatever it might be. If I have written something into a workspace here, and perhaps I might have gone as far as to mention somebody, Alan, can you take a look at something and post? So because that's been posted into that particular change management workspace, as a member of that workspace, obviously I'm going to get notified about that. So the effect of this is that in real time everyone's up to date, and where that really comes into play is, as I say, things like major incident management, because that's all about communication, problem management, but also in the case of things like projects. So if you're working on a project to, I don't know, update your CRM system, you may invite the people that are involved in that project, and then all the discussion around, you know, vendor meetings and requirements and all of that stuff can be put in here. Now, why is that useful? Well, because it's all searchable, it's all in one place, it's all online, and it's in real time, so you don't have to have endless meetings just to catch up on somebody's findings from a particular bit of research they might have done. They just need to post it and like it on Facebook or any of the other apps that you might use outside of work. Everyone that's involved in is instantly up to date with what's going on. Now, Manish talked about knowledge, so just to wrap up, I'm going to touch on knowledge and reporting just before I hand back to Manish here quickly. A couple of things. We talked about tacit knowledge. So one of the things we've experienced over years is seeing this idea where people share knowledge and information by email. So I'll have seen, in this case like this, an issue, and I know that a particular individual in my team may know the answer to that question. I'm going to email them a picture of the screenshot. They'll email me back the answer, which may or may not be correct, but either way, that's a private piece of communication between me and that person. Now, what we've tried to do here is to bring that conversation back into the open, if you like. So in the Hornbill approach, what you would do is you would have somewhere where people go to have that conversation, where members would exist of different skill sets and knowledge, first, second, third line, for example. So in this case, James has posted a question saying, has anyone seen this error code before? And a couple of his colleagues here have tendered responses. As it happens in this case, they've actually tendered them in their own language, which is nice because James can translate that back into English. But the key thing, aside from the language side, is the fact that actually 4 of James's colleagues and Pablo's colleagues have actually come back and said Pablo's response is the correct response. That's accurate, if you like. So the nice thing here is that James could then go ahead and open a request from that particular thing, or go away and fix the issue. But regardless, the fact is he's got the answer and it's been validated. But most importantly, it's not stuck away somewhere in email. So what I have the ability then to do is to come in and actually start to search for this kind of conversational knowledge that's being captured as you go about doing your day-by-day activities. So here's a whole bunch of information relating to Shrusoft, which is the VPN software, but it might be that I know that after a particular date I might want to exclude results because we've done an upgrade since, or it might be that actually I'm looking for knowledge from a particular individual because I know they are the expert, the guru in that particular area, or I'm just looking to narrow it down based on I know that this is the best place because that's where most people are going to ask those kind of questions. So again, by searching down and narrowing down to a particular workspace, I've returned a piece of information which you can see here was captured a couple of years ago in a conversation, validated by colleagues. These two people may well have long left the company, but that knowledge has been retained, if you like. So this is a very powerful way of getting knowledge, sharing knowledge, and being able to reuse that knowledge, if you like. Now, we still have a place for more traditional knowledge. So again, I can come in and I can upload formal documents and manuals and procedures and process stuff. So again, I can come in and search documents, and I've brought back a tagged document here which relates to change management, for example. So you can see this document is currently up for review, so you can build in review dates. You can build in ownership. So again, this document is currently owned by an individual, is shared with a couple of other individuals. So Graham owns this particular document. Rosemary and Daniel are particularly contributors, if you like, whereas no one else can come in and edit this document. They can only see it if they have the rights to see it. And the way they get the rights would be through the fact that this document has been shared into a particular library in which you have the rights to see or view. Now, the nice thing is obviously this document can be managed in here. If I have access to the document, I can post the timeline to suggest any changes or improvements. But the key thing is that we have a good quality revision history and control over our documents, which means that I know that whenever I come in and I hit open file up here, that is the latest version of that document. If I'm one of the contributors here, I can check this out for editing, which means that only one person can edit it at one time and all that kind of good stuff. So that's your more formal knowledge. And again, all of that builds into what you call your library. So again, I can come into my library as Graham and I can see the documents I have visibility of, and I can start to build out collections, and these collections can either be manual or automated. So based on a particular set of tags, documents will find me as long as I have visibility to them. So all of that kind of stuff is built in natively, and all of that's available on your mobile phone as well. So just to close out before I hand back to Manish, I was just going to step back in here and have a look very quickly at some of the analytical stuff. So obviously it's great to be able to do all of this stuff, but what's really important is being able to report on it. So built into the Hornbill platform is the concept of a trending engine, which allows you to snapshot data and sample data for later analysis, if you like. And what this allows you to build is to build in some thresholds and measures, and to effectively put that data into the database to be analysed later, either on its own or alongside other data. So that's what the measures allow you to do. Secondly, you've got widgets, and widgets can be used to create information, whether it's a list of information or whether it's a particular count list. So a very simple counter like this, whether it's live data or trended data, you can build widgets out of both. And once you've got those, you can then start to build out things like dashboards. So for example, I've got a dashboard here relating to customer feedback. So this is basically showing me, based on the feedback the customers are providing at the end of call closure through the survey tool, what the level of satisfaction is in regards to the service that people are receiving in general terms. So that's one example of a dashboard, but typically what you end up with is a whole bunch of different dashboards. Dashboards can be shared with individuals or roles, or they can be posted onto a large screen, and that's really where the slideshow comes into play. So the idea here is that you can actually put together a number of different dashboards and daisy chain them together, specify how long they're up on the screen for, and then have those up on a big plasma screen somewhere in a public place in the office. So this is a really nice way to effectively present information back to your business, and I'll just let that run through while I hand back to Manish here for you. So thanks for your time, and obviously if you've got any questions, please do post them, and Manish and I will take them for you in a little while.
Thank you very much, Abdi. That was a great demo. Just to remind everyone, please do continue to ask your questions. We will come to those at the end of the session. I'm just going to finish up now by looking at Hornbill's commercial offering, some of our key differentiators, and our Supportworks to Service Manager migration package. I want to share our core values as a company with you. Firstly, customer first. We're committed to working with our customers and being responsive to your needs. Partnership through collaboration means we work in partnership with you, our customers, and we value the feedback that you provide, whether it's through our user groups, our forums, or any other interactions with us. Quality, not compromise. We aim to be world-class in everything we do, whether it's our people, our processes, or our technology. And for the reason of quality, not compromise, we actually offer no fixed-term contract with Hornbill Service Manager, which I'll come on to shortly. So we want you to be 100% satisfied that this system is right for you, whether it's your reporting requirements, your language requirements, your business process requirements, whatever it may be. And for that reason, we're doing something quite different from other vendors in our marketplace. We're offering a 100% risk-free 30-day satisfaction guarantee. What that means is you put us to the test. We'll give you your own instance of Hornbill Service Manager free of charge for 30 days. You can try it out in your own environment, with your own data, with your own integrations. We'll assign a product specialist to you who will configure and implement the solution your way, again, free of charge. They will train you up and give you the knowledge and expertise you need to manage the system going forward. And at the end of the 30 days, the choice is yours. You can either start subscribing or you can walk away without obligation. The reason we offer this is because we want you, our customer, to be able to make an informed decision about whether this system is right for you and to take away the risk from you. So how does Hornbill stand out from the crowd? So I said earlier, this is a true service rather than a traditional piece of on-premise software. So you're always up to date with the latest features, with customizations that keep working and that without any service disruption. You concentrate on service delivery and let Hornbill take care of the rest. Price for life is a guarantee that we offer, whereby the pricing level you sign up to will stay the same for the entire length of time that you're a customer. If we raise our prices, you will not be affected. And better still, you'll get automatic discounts over time through the effect of inflation. Plus, you'll continue to get more value out of the solution as we add more and more features to the platform, which you'll not be paying anything extra for. Train for life is another guarantee that we offer, whereby we will train up your solution champion as part of our implementation. If they leave, if they're promoted, if they retire, whatever it may be, we will train up their replacement free of charge and we will continue to do so for the entire length of time that you're a customer. No contract tie-in. We want happy customers, not contractually bound customers, and for that reason we allow you to terminate your contract at any time without any notice, and this goes back to our core value of quality, not compromise. Why do we do this? Well, it's simple. This forces Hornbill to offer a great quality, great value service, otherwise our customers could simply leave us. How much does it cost? We offer a simple, scalable pricing model which starts at £42.50 per user per month with a volume discount applied, so the more users you have, the lower the unit cost becomes. Here's just a selection of some of the customers that have already migrated over to Hornbill Service Manager. As you can see, they come from various industries and sectors. Two I wanted to mention in particular. Firstly, Aylesbury Vale District Council, who moved over from Supportworks in 2015 to Hornbill Service Manager. This was part of their drive to move to an infrastructure-free environment. And you may be interested to know they actually won the Best Small Service Desk Award at the recent SDI Awards this year using Hornbill Service Manager. iDocs are a supplier of software and services to the UK public sector and also moved to Service Manager from Supportworks last year. One of their key concerns was the transfer of historical call data, and as you can see from the quote here from Martin, we actually moved around 10,000 call records over the course of a weekend for them. So just to finish now, as a Supportworks customer, we'll go over and beyond the free of charge implementation that I mentioned earlier, and we'll actually migrate over your call data if you require it. We'll also credit back any unused support and maintenance from your Supportworks contract. You will qualify as long as you have an active Supportworks contract with us. If you do wish to move forward and you're interested in this, please do let us know as soon as possible by registering your interest with your relationship manager. We are considering phasing out this free of charge migration service, so I would advise you to move forward as soon as possible if you are interested. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. We've received various questions today, which we will go through now.
Excellent, thanks Manish. So we did have a few questions here, so just very quickly, the first one's in relation to do we have an on-premise version? So unfortunately not. It's entirely a cloud-based solution. That's one of the key things is in being able to deliver continuous deployment, we need to have full control over the environment. So in essence, the native cloud app means that you don't have any infrastructure on site. There's no browser, no client or anything to install. So that's 100% web-based. So there's no on-premise version. Sort of preempting a question there is I guess one of the questions we tend to get is around how do I get my data in there. So as Manish suggested there, we have the free switch on and the free migration. So as part of that, we will take care of bringing across your data. In terms of historical core data, we have migration tools that allow us to do that. As far as bringing across things like asset data and user data, obviously we have integration tools to allow us to bring data through from Active Directory or other systems, as well as obviously integrating and pulling data or pushing data, should I say, into the cloud from things like SECM or Landesk, any of the sort of discovery tools that you may be using locally to manage assets. So I've got a question here about price for life. Maybe you want to take that on, Manish. How does price for life guarantee work, and how does that work in the case where I add more users down the road?
So with price for life, we will lock the pricing level that you sign up to for the entire length of time you're a customer. So what that means is if Hornbill decide to raise our prices, you won't be affected because you'll be locked into your pricing level. If you want to add more users, we will apply those at the same pricing level that you signed up to. And of course, remember, we offer a volume discount, so the more users you have, the lower the unit cost becomes.
Yeah. So in essence, it's the price plan that's locked rather than the actual unit price.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I've got a question here about making the move to Service Manager, but my Supportworks renewal date is due. What steps should I take?
Yeah, I'll pick that one up. We'd advise you to carry on and renew your Supportworks system because we'll actually refund your support and maintenance from Supportworks at the point that you sign up to Service Manager if you wish.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that seems to be all the questions for today. I'm sure a lot of stuff there that you saw today may have sparked an interest. If you have any further questions, I'm sure Manish and I would be more than happy to take them, but feel free to get in touch. So just kind of wrapping up, let's hand back to Sarah here to close.
Thank you, Abdi and Manish, for taking us through that presentation. I hope everyone found it useful. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact me or your relationship manager. Finally, thank you everyone for your time today. Goodbye.